Hi, everyone. Welcome to this DSA Awards session. Today, we are going to recognize different people and institutions that have contributed to dynamic spectrum access ecosystem, and we would like to go through the different categories. So, thank you very much for joining. This is in the scope of the DSA Global Summit. And before we start, I would like to thank all the sponsors that have made this possible. So let's start with a quick introduction about all the categories of the awards and announcing the winners. So the first award is for innovation in dynamic spectrum access policies. And this award recognizes one policymaker or regulator who has demonstrated outstanding leadership in adopting and implementing policies, making more spectrum available on an opportunistic basis. So for this one, the winner is the Communications Authority of Kenya. So we have received the proposal for this for Communications Authority of Kenya, especially recognizing that they have been at the forefront of embracing technology and policy innovations around dynamic spectrum access, and especially because two additional items. One is that Communication Authority has a long-term vision, and they have a national plan for transformation into a digital society. And one of the elements of that strategic plan in Kenya is to develop a framework for dynamic spectrum access. The second important part I would like to highlight for this award is that it has been, the Communication Authority has been working in close partnership with different stakeholders. So that is the case of the Strathmore University in Kenya that has been validating exercise and advising on technical issues, and also a close work with DFID from the UK, now the FCTO, that has also been providing support and information about best practices and opportunities to close the digital gap. So because of all these components, we think that Communication Authority is doing a great job in terms of promoting more connectivity and implementing dynamic spectrum access. So I would like to welcome Mr. Tom Olguero. He is attending here on behalf of the General Director, Mrs. Mercy Wanjau. So, Tom, it's my pleasure to welcome you today, and we would like to hear from you and your vision about the future for connectivity and more inclusion, more digital inclusion in Kenya.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Martha, for this great honor to the Communications Authority with regard to dynamic spectrum access frameworks. In fact, the authority is now almost 8-9 years into various forms of this technology, and we've been doing it just with the view of providing connectivity to our people. Little did we know we would be recognized, and this is indeed a great moment for the authority. And if I may say a few things about this great day, is that the authority is committed to improving broadband internet access by incorporating innovative spectrum access techniques in our spectrum management approach. Under our current strategic plan, which runs from 2019 to 2023, the authority is developing dynamic spectrum access frameworks which target the underutilized spectrum resources in unserved and underserved areas. As Madam Martha has indicated, our plan is to avail digital connectivity to the people of Kenya so that we can be a digital nation. So the objective is to permit licensed network operators to provide radio communication services using unused spectrum resources at specific locations for specific durations under the control of geolocation databases, which will require to be qualified by the authority. TV whitespace applications have the most mature equipment in our view and database ecosystem compared to other spectrum sharing opportunities. And this was prioritized by the authority in the early phase of our strategic plan. The first framework covers the use of TV whitespaces, while the second framework will cover use of by community networks. And there will be yet a third framework which will cover neutral host approach for mobile networks and dynamic spectrum access in underserved areas. The authority has actually, as Madam Martha indicated, partnered with Strathmore University of Kenya and Strathclyde University of the United Kingdom to investigate opportunities for various models of spectrum sharing in Kenya. The TV whitespace research programs are supported by UK Department for International Development, DFID, and UK Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. And the authority has been regularly consulting stakeholders from academia and industry, supported by Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, to discuss technical aspects of dynamic spectrum management. And the authority has developed a framework for TV whitespace applications, which was subjected to stakeholder review and public participation from March to May this year. The next steps are that the framework for use of TV whitespaces is scheduled for final consideration and approval in the course of this month, November 2020. And the key issue to be determined is the new approach to qualify secondary geolocation database to control access to TV whitespaces. The authority also established a portal, which is a listing server for interaction of qualified geolocation databases and type-approved TV whitespace devices. So finally, I would want to say that the authority has commenced the development of a framework for community networks, which is expected to be concluded by March next year, 2021. Stakeholders will be engaged on multiple aspects of the framework, including sustainability, capacity building, infrastructure, equipment, and dynamic spectrum access. And this project will kindly receive support from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in the UK. So I want to say, on behalf of my Director General, we are very, very happy and we will continue exploring this alternative way of providing service to our people. And as we say, we have a technology neutral framework within the authority, and that's why we are not going to shun any technology if it can improve the connectivity of our people. So thank you very much for this honor.
Thank you, Mr. Abuelo, for those kind words. And I'm really excited to hear about the future of community networks in Kenya. Those are great news. And we look forward to continuing working together, as you mentioned, on different technologies that could promote more and better connectivity. So thank you very much. And now let's move to the next award of this session. So this next award is recognizing individuals that have been, during their lifetime, have made creative contributions of outstanding significance in the field of dynamic spectrum sharing and dynamic spectrum technologies. So this is the Lifetime Achievement Award. So the winner is Paul Garnett. So Paul Garnett is the founder and CEO of Vernonburg Group. He was working at Microsoft and was the senior director of the Urban Initiative. And I would say one of the most important aspects I would like to highlight about his achievements is that he was from the inception, and he was with the idea of creating the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance. So he led to the formation of the DSA. He has been working with the Alliance for many years, and also he has inspired many people all around the world. So in my case, I have to personally say that I had the pleasure to work with him since I started being the president. And I have learned a lot of things about his passion for connectivity, for really connecting everybody, for having digital inclusion. I think that is really part of his. He's really convinced about all the actions that we should all undertake, and he has been also working all around the world on different initiatives. So I'm really happy and honored to invite Paul and to just give him on behalf of the DSA this special award.
Well, thank you very much for that. So I would like to thank Dr. Martha Suarez, the president of the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, and the members of the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance board for giving me this award. I have to confess that I was a little surprised to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. I don't really feel like at this stage of my life, my career, that I'm really worthy of a Lifetime Achievement Award. I think maybe I'm a little too young for that, but I am nonetheless grateful and honored to receive this award. It's really a great honor. It's really been my pleasure to have been involved in the creation and growth of the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance over, I think it's been 9 years since conception and creation and where we are today. Almost a decade ago, we created the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance to address what was really a failure in the marketplace. At the time we created the DSA, there really was no global organization advocating for laws and regulations allowing greater dynamic shared access to spectrum. Indeed, at that time, most industry groups and many members of industry were fighting against various forms of spectrum sharing. There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear. Policymakers were being told that spectrum sharing could not work, and indeed would do significant harm to incumbent users of spectrum of various forms. Policymakers at the time were also kind of stuck. They were stuck in a world of inflexible exclusive use licensing and artificial spectrum scarcity. And they really were incapable of addressing growing demand for spectrum across a variety of spectrum bands. What we wanted to do with the DSA was to create an organization that could credibly work with policymakers and regulators around the world to educate them and give them the tools they need to enable greater shared access to spectrum, to address things like the growing demand for different types of services, the demand to create more network capacity, enable the Internet of Things, and as Martha mentioned before, to help close the global broadband gap. We wanted to create an organization that also could be a true partner to governments using spectrum policy to address their key policy priorities beyond just spectrum policy, but things about education, healthcare, and other areas. Over the time since we've created the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, a lot has changed. We've gone from being asked, whether dynamic spectrum access could even work, to being asked how to get it done. And indeed, I think we're kind of at a point where a lot of regulators are those that have really led in this space, like we just heard from Tom Aweru at Communications Authority of Kenya, which is a leader in East Africa on these issues, and got to the point where they can actually help other regulators in adopting their own policy frameworks. And then, many of the companies and organizations that once adamantly opposed spectrum sharing are now supporting it, or at least they don't oppose it anymore. I mean, think about it. Can one imagine 5G working without different forms of spectrum sharing on both licensed and unlicensed or license-exempt spectrum? Without spectrum sharing in its many forms, there really would be no 5G. And beyond 5G, the next generation of wireless technologies will not be possible without expanded spectrum sharing. Those of you who know me well know that I am passionate about bringing connectivity to unserved communities around the world. I founded Microsoft's Airband initiative, and I recently formed a new consulting firm called the Vernonburg Group, which advises companies, governments, and other organizations on how they can close the global broadband gap. Even with all of the progress that's been made over the last decade in terms of bringing broadband access to more people, half the world's population is still not online. And even in places like the US, we have a broadband gap. In the US, for example, there are about 19 million Americans who lack access to broadband, of which 14.5 million are in rural areas. And that represents about 1/4 of the rural population. And then in certain areas, the broadband gap is even greater, like in tribal areas in the US, where nearly 1/3 of the population lacks access. And then there's an affordability issue in terms of connectivity. And again, even in the US, 100 million people who have access to broadband don't subscribe to it for a variety of reasons. That's about 1/3 of the US population. And then Microsoft's own usage data shows that only about half of Americans are accessing the internet at broadband speeds. And then, of course, we're in the midst of a terrible global pandemic. And what the global COVID pandemic has done is really further highlight the importance of connectivity for social and economic inclusion, for access to education, healthcare, working remotely, and for political participation. At the same time, the World Bank, I don't know whether you've seen these recent reports, has stated that for the first time in 20 years, an additional 100 to 150 million people could sink into extreme poverty in the next year as a result of this pandemic. And that surely will place a further drag on efforts to close the digital divide. So alongside a variety of other measures, I think that increased dynamic spectrum access is a key ingredient to addressing these critical issues, like the closing the broadband gap. So I hope that the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance and its members will redouble their efforts and work with policymakers around the world and regulators to enable them to allow greater access to spectrum across a variety of complementary bands, TV white spaces, the CBRS bands in 3.5 gigahertz, 5 and 6 gigahertz, and the millimeter wave bands. I want to thank the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance for giving me this award. And I really believe the DSA is a great example of how we accomplish so much more when we work together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you very much for these inspiring words. So now we are going to continue with the next award of this session, and this is the award for research on new opportunities for dynamic spectrum access. This award recognizes a research initiative, student-led initiatives, or student groups who have made significant academic and research contributions in the area of dynamic spectrum access. So the winner is Universidad Santo Tomas. So we are recognizing Universidad Santo Tomas in Bogota because they have been working with the National Spectrum Agency of Colombia, ANE, and they have been implementing a database for dynamic spectrum access to the TV white spaces in Colombia, and according and following the rules established by ANE. This solution has been already tested, but they are still working on some improvements, and they have been testing also different equipments. And but we would like to recognize their impeccable job, their exhaustive research, and the advancements that they have done in order to implement automated solutions for TV white spaces in Colombia. So I would like to welcome Decano de Ingeniería de Telecomunicaciones, Mr. Herman Macias, and also Tatiana Sona, the researcher that has been working on this project. So, Decano, thank you very much for accepting to receive this award. And we would like to hear a few words from you about the job that you have been doing.
Okay, Marta, thank you and good afternoon. In the name of Universidad Santo Tomas, I'd like to thank you for choosing us as the recipient of DSA's Award for the Student Lead Initiative or Research on New Opportunities for Dynamic Spectrum Access. We feel so grateful and honored for receiving this award, and this encourages us to work harder and be better every day. Thank you very much. My principal researcher, Tatiana, my professor, showed us an overview about our project, Tatiana.
Thank you, Herman. First of all, I would like to thank the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance for this space and the award. My name is Tatiana Sona. I'm a researcher in Universidad Santo Tomas in Colombia. I am going to talk about the Colombian TV Wide Space Database, our research project in cooperation with Agencia Nacional del Espectro. The agenda is divided in 3 parts. First of all, I am going to talk about the context, project goals, and how the platform works. In the second part, I am going to address details about the research challenges. And finally, I am going to present the main results. TV Wide Space is a connectivity solution for rural zones with low populational density. For this reason, ANE would allow to use this technology in Colombia through the Resolution 105 of 2020. Here we can see the TV Wide Space Network topology database is a crucial component. In 2017, ANE did a call for research proposal to develop the Colombian TV Wide Space database. Intel, our research group, participated and got the grant. We have been working during 2018 and 2020. These 2 phases have different goals. In the first one, we had to implement 5 messages from PAUS protocol, discover how to calculate the available channel list, implement all functionalities like interfaces, reports, and management, and deploy the platform in an infrastructure. In the second one, we improve number of available channels in the available channel list by adding a new calculation method and restricting TV wide space use to municipality main cities with high populational density. We improve the way information is analyzed and shown, and finally, we have worked in analyzing TV wide space technology coverage in the territory. The platform has 7 modules, and a team configure all parameters within the calculation module. People can request for available channel by the interface. The interface asks to the calculation module and return the available channel list. A device can do the same by communication module, which implements the PAUS protocol. All interactions with devices are stored in database, and the information is shown by different reports on demand in the management module. We can say that the platform heart is the calculation module. The first challenge was height calculation. We use a ring centered in a geographical point. All heights inside the ring was used to make the average terrain. Then, to get the height, the difference between the height in the point and the average terrain is calculated. If height is over 800 meters, the platform returns an empty available channel list by default. As guideline, we use ITU RP 1546 with the minimum normalized strength field and effective height and the effective height interference radio is interpolated. This procedure is repeated for analog TV and for 4 modulation in digital TV. These 2 methods are implemented in the platform. We must highlight that the methods guarantee no causes interference on TV broadcasters. In order to calculate the available channel list, first we have to get a co-channel vector. We center a circle in a geographical point with the analog interference radio. Colombian chat file is consulted to get municipalities' codes inside that circle. The analog assignment is consulted for each code. If there are no assignment, the channel is free, and if there are any assignment, the channel is occupied. Now we have the analog co-channel vector. We do the same to get 4 vector more for digital modulation, and 1 more vector is calculated with the biggest interference radio for forbidden channels. So the co-channel vector is get overlapping all these vectors. If any circle includes a forbidden municipality main city, the available channel list is returned empty by default. Then we have to get an adjacent vector. The same procedure used before is applied to get an adjacent vector. For each channel, 3 channels above and 3 channels below are taken into account to get availability. This is repeated for all the channels to get the adjacent vector. The co-channel and adjacent vector are used to get the final available channel list. We must highlight that this procedure is for one request in a specific geographical point, and all calculations are online. To summarize the importance of this project, ANE has a functional platform which gives an available channel list on demand for a specific geographical point. This platform has been tested with manufacturers' devices, and the PAUS implementation works very well. The platform has an independent and configurable calculation module that can be consumed as an API and has the procedure shown before. Now, we are analyzing TV white spaces coverage over the country. Here you can see in green points with height above 800 meters. And here you can see the effect produced by a forbidden municipality main city. The most important thing is the platform preserves primary use. Thank you for your attention and for the honor to be here.
Thank you very much, Tatiana and Herman. It's exciting to see this presentation, and it summarizes all the activities you have been doing and the importance of this research for Colombia and for the National Spectrum Agency. So,
thank you, Marta. Thank you very much.
So we look forward to hearing more news from the university at the end of the project with all the conclusions.
Okay.
So we are going to reveal the last winner of this 2020 DSA Global Summit Awards. And the last type of award is for increasing digital inclusion. So this award recognizes an organization or individual who has successfully developed and or deployed a spectrum-based technology and or a business model that has the potential to reduce the cost of internet access and get billions more people online. So the winner is the government of El Salvador, especially the Secretaría de Innovación, so the Innovation Secretary of El Salvador. In fact, we are recognizing the work of the Innovation Secretariat because they have been working on a way to solve a technical and also a commercial model, so to have the 2 components in that model in order to solve digital divide. And they have a proposal to develop a national connectivity network that will have a massive deployment of services with quality control and security. And for that, they have been investing resources and also creating synergies with different entities within El Salvador. And we are sure that they have a great vision about this national connectivity network and also how it will affect a lot of people and allow them to be connected and to be digitally included. So, unfortunately, we are not able to hear from the project today, but we just wanted to make this recognition and to let you know about the winners of this type of award. So with this, I would like to conclude our session today. A big bravo for all the winners. They have really encouraged, promoted digital inclusion. They have been working from their expertise areas, regulator, industry, and university. And they have been, I'm convinced they have been changing lives. So thank you very much for watching this session, and we look forward to continuing working together. Thank you very much.